Happy Friday, everyone. Friday the 13th. I hope all of you are having a great, a great time, a great weekend, or at least planned a great weekend. And we are doing our live session, our weekly live session, and it could be, mostly fitting when we do Friday the 13th, talk about the scary topic, which is property managers. Of course, property managers. How scary that is. And I wanted to talk about a couple of things regarding property managers, and of course, we're going to take your questions. So this is an open session. Mostly, I'm encouraging your questions throughout. So please put them in the comments, and we'll take them as we move forward. And if you're here, just feel free to join. I want to just mention quickly that next week we are having two events in San Francisco, live in the room events, classes. In Sunnyvale and in San Francisco itself. It's coming in San Francisco on Tuesday the 17th and Wednesday in Sunnyvale, California, Wednesday the 18th, 6 p.m. If you want to register, just go to our website, go to our different links. It's all over the web. Easy to find the link and to register. And we're going to have our next weekly live like this one in a week on next Friday. And with that said, let's just jump into the topic of property managers. So property managers has always been a challenge. On one hand, it's something that we want to use even, when we invest remotely, when we invest even locally. They provide a lot of services. They actually, I mostly see their services as something that we need to buy our time because we are busy with other things, and we let a professional handle all things professional. So that's easy, obviously, to do that. But with that territory comes challenges. So I'm just going to tell you from my experience, by the way, I'm Dani Beit-Or. I live in California. I've been investing in real estate for about 15 years. I've been guiding others to investing remotely for about the same time in multiple areas around the country, around the US, all done remotely. So I live in California. I have not invested locally in California at all. All my investments and all our investors' investments have been in Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Arizona, Oklahoma, and more, just to name a few. Mostly rentals and some, and many flips as well. So we do residential rentals and flips. And I want to talk about the property management because I've been in this business long enough to have an extensive experience with property managers. So first of all, let's talk about a little bit about how to pick a property manager. When you have a rental property locally or out of state, the reputation the property managers have is that that they are crooks. They are people who are always trying to steal and scheme and con the owner. And you know what? Truth of the matter is that's not true. I'm sure those guys and those companies and those people exist like in any other field. There's plenty of property managers out there that have been in business for many years, that are trying to do good work for the owners and to make sure the owners are happy and pleased and prosperous and making money. So don't just make the assumption that all property managers, listen, those guys have a reputation, a poor reputation. There's no doubt about it. But it doesn't mean you have to immediately jump into a conclusion and make the assumption that all of them are bad. You got to vet them. You got to look into them. You got to see how long they've been in business and what's their style and what their processes are. This is how we go and find property managers when we go out there, and we just spend a significant amount of time vetting them and looking into their activity and operations and learning about what they do in order to pick the best ones. So that's something all of us, need to do. The second thing that a lot of investors are attracted to, they're looking at two property managers. And one, let's say in one area, and one, let's say they all come across okay. One is charging 5% and the other is charging 10%. Naturally, we're going to immediately, choose the one who's charging 5% for no good reason. So I can tell you that from my experience, those property managers that charge 5%, usually, unless it's something very unique that they have a certain way to make up for the low And by the way, it really depends on where you buy, where you're investing, because 5% in places, different parts of California, that would be unacceptable because the rents are so high. 5% in an area like Phoenix or Oklahoma City or other parts of Texas would not be acceptable because the rents are not that high, and 5% do not translate to a significant amount in their pocket. So that means there's probably another way they're making up for loss of income, of potential income. So I would say be very cautious about someone who's telling you a low fee, because that usually comes with something that you're not aware. Almost always, in my experience, that has been the case. So don't be attracted to the low fee. Be attracted to the professional, property manager, because the guy who, I have an investor who told me once, I have two property managers that I work with, one in Houston, one in Dallas. The guys in Dallas are doing an amazing job. The guys in Houston are doing an okay job, not a poor job, but an okay job. And I would gladly pay not the 8.5% that I'm paying right now. I will gladly pay 12% if I know my manager is doing a terrific job for me, taking care of my interest ongoingly, saving me money on repairs, saving me money on vacancies, taking care of all those things. I would pay more than the normal industry standard of 10%. And obviously that actually makes a lot of sense, because wouldn't you rather, for us investors, paying 10 or 12% is almost, it's such a small difference versus someone who's doing an okay job or an amazing job for us on the property. It's not even, there's no, it's not even close to do that. So to compare that. So obviously, don't get attracted to the ones that are saying we're only charging 5% in an industry that everybody around them charges 9%. That just something is off here. So just be aware of that. Second thing, that a lot of investors are kind of going into this and they're thinking, property manager is me when I'm not there. Well, honestly, that's not really the case. Don't go into this expecting the property manager to be you when you're not there. Expect your property manager to take care of your property, to do things for you, but they're not going to visit the property on a weekly basis or even a monthly basis. They're going to visit it maybe once or twice a year and in additional occasions when necessary. Don't expect them. They manage multiple properties. Don't expect them to, don't go into this under that assumption of the property manager is me when I'm not there. It's too naive. It's not true, but there's more to it, than just this kind of, like statement or title statement. There's more depth to it. My approach with property manager is the following. First of all, sooner or later, I know there's going to be some friction. I know it's going to happen, right? Even the property managers, I've seen that have good intentions and they want to, do good, good work for us and make, good judgment call on my behalf. Sometimes you make the wrong ones. It's only human, or you think you'll make one decision and there's a little bit of a different outcome, and then you as an owner, are pissed about that decision. So even good intentions are not always resulting in the utmost or the ideal results. That happens. That happens everywhere when we're dealing with human beings. Second thing is, so expect friction. It's going to happen. Communication, you said, he said, she said, you meant one thing, they understood another. Those things will happen. Learn not to love it, but to accept it's part of this ordeal, and look at a bigger picture. Look at your investment at large, not just that property or that situation. Second thing, what I've learned over the years, instead of trying to let them do their job regularly or let them fail, wait for them to fail in order to kind of say, you see, he didn't do a good job for me. I know he's a bad or a poor property manager. What my approach is, if I have found someone who's good, I'm going to be proactively nudging them to make sure they're taking good care of my interests. So that means, for example, when I have property that it's vacant, on a weekly basis, I have a note on my calendar. Call the property manager or email them and say, what's going on with the property? Check up on that. Every time on a weekly basis, I check up. I say, okay, what's going on? What have we done? Is it time to lower the rent a little bit? And do we have applications? No applications, showings, all of those things. Every week when I have a vacant property, I'm going to follow up on the property manager. The fact that you are following up on the property manager on a weekly basis, it's a little nudge. It does a lot to your best interest, to your bottom line. Be aware of that. So that's just an example. Other things that that I expect them to do, I don't wait for them to necessarily do it or remember to do it. My assumption is they're going to eventually get around to it. I want it done on a certain day. I'm going to remind them. I'm going to tell them, remember next week I want you to go to the property to check on a few things. Remember in 1 month to do the site inspection. Remember this, remember that. I don't wait after the fact to learn that they didn't do it. I put it on my calendar. I say, hey, next week or next month, remember I want you to do 1, 2, 3, and I help them succeed. Help them succeed. If you're going to help them succeed, they will appreciate you. It will remove stress out of the relationship, and will actually, if they succeed, you succeed. It's a very simple formula. So if you're going to this investment and approach and going and working with the property manager with the mindset that the property manager is going to be me when I'm not there, you're going to expect disappointment. They're going to disappoint you. But if you're going to this saying, I need to help them succeed, I'm going to help them succeed by reminding them, by encouraging them, by telling them what you think, or letting them, or trusting their decision. It will help you tremendously. I can tell you that, for example, I had an eviction twice that had happened. That there was a need for an eviction. And the property, in both cases, 2 different property managers, one in Dallas, one in Oklahoma City, in unrelated incidents. But in both of them, they asked me, what do you want to do? What do you think, what do you want to do with the situation? I told them, listen, what do you think I should do? I trust your judgment. What is your suggestion? And in both cases, I said, listen, we think that we need to evict this person for this reason or another. I said, okay, I trust your judgment. I'm going to back you up. If this is what you think is the best, go ahead and do that. That's what I mean to empower them. In a way, I look at them as my employees, someone that, when I tell those people, I trust you to make a decision. I empower you to practice, a good judgment call that you think is a good judgment call. On my behalf, you give them the liberty to actually go ahead and do that. So that's a very important thing that I've learned when I say, help them succeed and not wait for them to fail. Those are the main things I wanted to discuss on property managers that I prepared for myself on property managers. Thank you for the feedback for the property manager on Friday the 13th. If you have any questions or some comments, by all means, please put them in the comment, and I will be happy to respond to that. So let me just say one more thing about property managers. I think we're going to conclude with this. Sometimes I get investors that are calling me and saying, thank you, Ehud. The property manager is not returning my call, or the property manager is not responsive. And, I even had a lady once call me, one of my investors, a lady once called me and said, listen, I called him and he hasn't returned my call. And I asked her, when did you call him? He said 2 hours ago. That was a little bit, kind of an off case. But, I even tell it to my investors, listen, those guys, they're working, they have lives, they have things going on. They can't always respond, quickly. Try again, call again. Don't just send one email and say, oh, they're not responsive, or call once and not responsive. Be proactive. Altogether, be proactive with your investments. It will serve you better. So just remember that when you're talking to the property managers. I even tell it to my own investors. They, we give them, I think, such a good service that they call or email a property manager, and within 2-3 hours, 4 hours, no response. They call us like, oh, this guy's never answers. Like, really, come on, pick up the phone again. Don't call us so quickly. We will help you, but you know what? You just make it, it's It's a small issue. Don't sweat over it so much. Try again. It's okay. It's people. There's one question that comes like, how do you choose property managers? I have a series of more than 30 indicators or 30 items that I check for property managers. But I can say that the rule of thumb for me over the years have been, they got to be a large company, meaning at least 100 property would consider a large company. If it's less than 100, usually they'll have challenges with growth. People that have been in the industry long enough, not someone that started just recently. The conversation, I drill them down on almost on probably 10 main procedures that are property management related, and I want to see how they answer and how they conduct themselves, because I know what works. I can give an example. I interviewed a guy in Houston some years back, and this guy was at 5%, like I told you, and he was managing 12 properties, 6 was his. And he called himself a property manager. When I started asking him about different procedures, very clear in the conversation, I could tell that this guy doesn't know anything about property management, right? So I probably stay on the call out of politeness for maybe 10 more minutes, and then I hang up and say, I'm never going to work with this guy. Not now. If he grows to be a successful one, by all means. But the answers at 5%, you really get what you paid for. This guy practically doesn't manage anything. Just says that he's a property manager. If you only have one property and it's near my home, is it still worth having a property manager? Very good question. I think it's more of a personal preference. And I'll tell you 2 examples. A lot of people that I know that have properties nearby do use a property manager for the following reason. Number one, they're busy. They're just busy. They don't want to have time to deal with anything. So they outsource their time to someone else. That doesn't mean, when you have a property manager, that doesn't mean it's going to be buy and forget, and the property manager is going to take care of everything and you have no noise and no issues, in your life. Of course, they're going to report to you when there's a vacancy, when there's a repair, if there's a problem. That's a little bit of a noise. Maybe not a tiny noise, not a lot to do with it, but it's not like, okay, I forget about this house, for the next 10 years. So that will happen either way, locally or if you were doing remotely. So first of all, it's a personal preference in terms of your time, your busyness. Second is, do you want to deal with those issues, right? I have investors that I know that own locally and manage themselves because they're handy. They don't have, they're okay with coordinating and talking to the tenants. They feel comfortable. And then I have people say, listen, I don't want to deal with tenants. I don't want to deal with all those issues that's coming from the rental property. It's so cheap to use a property manager. Why would I even bother? So it's really a matter of preference how you want to go about it. There's no right and wrong here. Of course, the way I look at it is you just buy time, right? I can do my own marketing, but I'd rather go and hire someone who's professional about it, and she'll do the marketing for us, right? So I can do it, maybe not as good or maybe as good, but it's allocating, making a better use of my time. Also, when you use a professional property manager who's licensed, this person will, first of all, create some sort of a barrier between you and the tenant. So there's another kind of protection layer. And this person is a professional. So he's on the top of the regulation and what the law requires. And he needs to take care of things more professionally. He has to adhere to some guidelines and regulations and laws that are going to make sure being done properly. So that even creates some sort of a protection layer for you to make sure things are done properly with the with the property itself, up to code and all of that. Most owners that are self-managing will know that there's differences in code changes or regulation changes that could affect them. They may not even know because they don't stay involved or informed well within the professional property management industry. So that's also something to remember. Someone professional is taking care of the property, for you. It's not a bad idea at all. Do you recommend having a home warranty on a rental property? That's an excellent question. I've been debating with this one for many years. For me, it was always based on the property itself and the age. And, you know, I would kind of say, okay, I suspect this house is going to generate more issues for me, then I will have it. And if I suspect it's not going to have so many issues, then I won't. So it really was on a case by case. When things were, when I believe there's more chances of issues because I know the house, I know the age, I know the age of the appliances, then absolutely I would include that. And then I would shop around. I mean, there are really a lot of programs out there with easily $100 to $300 per year difference in the, in the warranty. So I would shop around, as I've done. So it will be excellent questions, by the way. It will be something that I will make a judgment call per the property. I don't need a home warranty on a house that, new construction from the builder. It's no need for that, right? But in 10 years, maybe, okay, just as an example. And again, if I have a house that I just renovated and put new appliances, probably no need, right? So it's all a balancing act between what the condition of the house and what I expect. And I think I know of I see more people use home warranty when they're not using property managers, because it actually helps mitigate some of those things. So that that are a reason why I would probably be more inclined to take home warranty if I self-manage than if I use a property manager. Okay, very good. I'm going to wait here for 20-30 more seconds, and I want to welcome those who joined us a little bit late, and thank you. Feel free to put comments and questions if you just joined. This is also going to be recorded, so you can access to it later. If you're watching the recording, feel free to put comments in the recording. We'll try to address those comments as well. And if there are no additional questions, I'm going to thank you for your 23 minutes of your time today or less for joining me. And I wish you happy Friday the 13th. Don't be scared of property managers. They're not bad people. And I hope to see you in one of our events or talk to you soon. Have a terrific weekend. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the great questions. Bye-bye.